Let's check in, don't check out, guarding your mental health with intention. Up next, we have a panel I cannot wait to hear. This session emphasizes the importance of self care and intentional mental health practices. Let's welcome back our moderator, Miss Corinne Corbett. What she say? Where's Miss Corinne at? Where's Miss Corinne? Come on, Miss Corinne. I can do better than that. Let's make some noise, Miss Corinne. All right, all right. Next, joining Miss Corinne are two exceptional speakers. First, we have Gigi Renee Hill. Where's Miss Gigi Renee Hill? Let's make some noise. A nationally recognized author, creative coach, and founder of the Inner Story Writing Circle. Through her books, Miss Renee Hill workshops and coaching programs. Gigi inspires individuals to prioritize self-care, break through creative barriers, and reclaim their narratives. Next, rounding out this panel is Dr. Lisa Lomas. Where's Dr. Lisa at? Let's make some noise for Dr. Lisa, a psychologist and CEO of Lisa Listens Incorporated with over 30 years of expertise in mental health. Dr. Laurie Lomas is a leader in human relations and self-development. She is a passionate advocate for diversity, inclusion, and equity, and her work has empowered countless individuals and organizations globally. Please join me in welcoming our guests for our next panel. The floor is yours, ladies.
We want to talk about coping strategies for the next 4 years because we can't stay in bed, right? So, and we can't watch the news and react to everything we see either, can we? Because we're not going to make it that way. So, I want to talk to our panelists about things that we can do to help us deal with the stress. Because we need to deal with the stress, don't we? Because we're not going to make it otherwise. Because our pressure's going to go up and our hearts are going to give out. And we don't want to do that, do we? So we've got some experts who are going to give us some good advice on how to make it through in the best ways possible. So, what are what have you seen in working with your clients on stress levels?
Well, thank you for the question and thank you for inviting me to join you today. I'm really excited to be here. And it's such an important topic because what I'm seeing is saturation. People are just saturated with the information. They don't know which way to turn. One day they're saying one thing, the next day they're saying another thing, and it's just constant. And so, really, it's traumatizing, and we're being re traumatized over and over and over again. Some people can't get out of bed. Some people are having trouble focusing. Some people are having trouble eating. Some are eating their feelings. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot for people. A lot of anxiety and a lot of depression.
Yeah, I would second that. Most of my clients that I work with are working with me on their writing, their creative expression, and we're finding a lot of community and coming together around that and finding ways to channel our emotions, our frustration, and really activate our imaginations, which is an escape from all the things that are going on in the news and turning it towards our writing, whether that's just journaling your feelings, writing stories, like just really reconnecting with taking your attention away from all the noise and turning it back inward and what really grounds you. So that's what the advice I've been giving them is to turn to your creative practice, turn to the things that where you do have control because we don't have control about what's going on in the world. So what can you focus on to give you a break from that?
Right. So let's talk about let's start with what we can do every day, like daily practices. What can we start doing in the morning?
Well, I want to piggyback on what Gigi said when she talked about what can we control. I think it's really important that we do stop and check in and ask ourselves the question, do I have power? And where do I have power? Yes or no? And a lot of the things we don't have any power over. And where you do have power, which is daily practice of turning off the TV, turning off the radio. I'm an information junkie, so I would start my day every day with the news, Good Morning America or MSNBC, and so where I had power was to not start my day like that. I don't want to start my day like that because it's some more chaos and crazy. I mean, it'll be there. I can get, if I need to get the information, I can get it later. So I don't start my morning like that. Now I am empty nested, thank you, Lord, and single. So I do have to get the information because I have to be able to take care of myself. And so another daily practice I have are I take it in small bites, sound bites. So one thing that I do is I record. I'm working during the day. I'm not at home, but I record the view because if it's important, Whoopi's going to talk about it on the view. Um, and I also have news alerts that come to my phone. The alert part is silenced, so it doesn't catch me off guard, but I can go and look at it and I see the headline. And if it's something I think I need to know more about, then I'll do a deeper dive. And if it's not, then I don't. And so managing my consumption of information during this kind of chaos is helpful.
Yes, definitely the morning is the time to set the tone for your day. And one thing I've been doing is making sure I get some type of spiritual, fill my cup in some way spiritually first thing in the morning before I let any news in, preferably before I talk to anybody. I'm like trying to either listen to a spiritual podcast or like a sermon on YouTube, or I have my devotional, the little books where it's just like a page or a paragraph. It's not too much, but just enough to set you on the right tone before I let the world in. I can feel the difference when I don't do that. Sets my tone for the day. And if I can, I'm not saying I do this every morning, but if I can, I try to get some fresh air because I work from home as well. I'll try to take a walk on some days. I don't always do it first thing in the morning, but when I do and I connect with nature and I have my little devotional before I start the day, I feel like my cup is full and I can better handle what the day might bring.
Get those endorphins going.
Exactly.
All right. So when you have a daily practice and when you do something that you can control, then you're better able to manage the chaos because the chaos is going to be there. We know the chaos is there, but how you engage with the chaos, how you choose to engage with the chaos is your choice, right? So then what's the relationship with social media?
My relationship with social media is similar to what Lisa shared about how she sets time aside to check the news, to watch her view video. I'm like that with social media as well. And this is what I tell my clients, like you can't just scroll on there. You can, but be prepared for like to be pulled in all these different directions. I'll set time aside. Maybe I'm eating my lunch and I said I'll set a timer on my phone and say I'm going to check in on social media for like 10 minutes. You know what I mean? And like part of I have to go on social media for my business. So I do need to go on there, but I try not to do it randomly. Now, when it comes to other things that might pull you in that direction, like I'll get a text message from a friend, like, did you check that thing I sent you? Like, so of course it's not going to be perfect, but realizing that you have the opportunity to control what presents itself to you, what you consume, and that you can manage that. It takes some practice and some self control because it's such a habit. I find myself all the time before I know it, I picked up my phone to do something else, and there's an alert, and I'm on Instagram. And I'm like, how did I even get here? I was supposed to be doing something else. So I like what you said about managing that. You can change your settings so that things don't push through to you. And you can manage how much access these things have to you. So I would definitely suggest not going on social media just randomly, but really setting time aside in particular parts of your day to go on so that you're in control of what gets in your face.
During this time, I'm off social media. I'm just not even going on it. I should be on it for my business. I'm not, because for me, it's too much. So stopping and doing a check-in. Is it too much for you? Then maybe you take a break. It could be a day, a week, 3 days, indefinitely. So every individual is different, but I know that it is a habit, and I know that this is actually how some of my clients even get their news is through social media, and so people are on it. So I think setting a timer for yourself, picking specific times of day, because often I'm hearing, and what I used to also do is if I had downtime, I would just scroll to see what people are doing, or the fan dance is out, so I like to look at the people doing, boots on the ground. That those videos on TikTok, they make me laugh. Um, and one of the people, when people tell me that they relax that way, one of the tips that I give is to put in the search bar what you're actually looking for. So if you're looking for line dancing, put that in there, and then that's what's going to come up, and you're not just going to be hit in the face with something. Or um, uh, Jennifer Hudson has the people, that dance through. A friend of mine loves those, and so she'll put that in. So you can still have that adrenaline, that endorphin stuff in your brain, and you can relax and have your social media fix in a way that's actually feeding your spirit and not deplenishing. Because then that's the other piece when you do your check-in. How am I feeling after this? Am I energized? Is my cup full? Or am I depleted?
Yeah. And can I add on to that? I love that because I, over the years, have really curated my timeline. So I'm only following people and accounts that spark joy or inspire me or teach me something. So that's another way that we can exercise that control. And for the people that maybe are, I don't know, family members or friends that their timeline doesn't spark joy for you, can mute them. They don't have to know you. You don't have to unfollow them, but you can mute them or something like that so that you can manage that.
There is something called doom scrolling. And that is when you find something that is distasteful or something that is making you unhappy in the news, and you fall down the rabbit hole and you look for more and more stuff on that subject. If you see or find yourself doing that, that's when you log off or get off that subject. So if you see yourself doing more and more of that, that's when you stop. Okay? That would be my suggestion. If you are a doom scroller, that is something you can control and stop doing if that is making you just depressed, or don't doom scroll. Because that is a rabbit hole. And that is like you become obsessed with it, and then you find another subject that you doom scroll. And you find more friends that doom scroll with you, and that's what you talk about.
When it's easy to do, because that is what your friends are talking about. Did you see what he said? Or did you read? Or did
Yes.
you? Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about ways that you can work through your frustrations. So, Dr. Lisa, talk therapy.
Absolutely. I'm a big believer. We all need a therapist, and there's lots of ways to get therapy nowadays. So there's no excuse for anybody not have some form of therapy. So yes, definitely talk therapy. It allows you to process life, good, bad. Um, I'm going to let you talk about it, but often recommend to my clients a lot of what Gigi does in her line of work. But it's finding a way to process your feelings and let them go and find hope and joy. And so, how do we do that?
Right. So, I also want to piggyback on talk therapy. So, individual therapy versus group. Could you just speak a little bit to that?
Absolutely. Group therapy sometimes is driven by a topic, sometimes it's just driven by a crowd. You often churches, there are mental health ministries that will allow for a group therapy session. It's a place to go to find community and to know that you're not alone, because in this chaos, one of the issues is also it's very isolating. People are often feeling that they are alone, and in group therapy you know that you're not. It is to be careful though. You don't want to take on somebody else's pain and trauma and drama. So you want to monitor and see what's benefiting you versus individual where the focus is just on you. 100% you are the center of the stage. And I often have clients that say to me, "Oh, you're my friend." And it feels like I'm their friend, but I'm not. And so you want to be someplace where you feel warm and accepted. But if we were friends, then I'd be talking too. I'd be talking about me too. So I was like, you don't want to be my friend. You just want me to be here for you, which is what I'm supposed to be. And so there is a benefit to both.
Gigi, could you talk a little bit about your work?
Yes, I highly recommend journaling as another way to process your feelings and to get them out of your head and onto the page as a practice to help you cope with what's going on in the world, and just as a lifelong practice in dealing with adversity. And the thing about journaling is that you can be unfiltered. You can just let everything that's because a lot of times in our minds, things loop. They loop over and over again. And we also don't realize how much we're consuming the language that comes from the news and all these other sources. And it can infiltrate our own beliefs, right? So if I believe I have faith, and I believe in hope, and I believe in all these things, but the news is telling me, it's doom and no hope and all these terrible things are going to happen. I start to feel that way. I start to internalize that. So on the page, I'm able to sort through what my fears are. I'm able to sort through all of the things that are going on in my head. And what I tell my clients is, a lot of times they'll say, well, I just feel like I'm venting and I'm feeling worse, like writing all these things down. So then what I say is then, okay, give a voice to your fear, let it all out on the page. But then when you reach a certain point where you feel like you depleted all of that, turn on that other side that, like, if you were talking to a friend and you were encouraging them, what would you say to them? And speak to yourself in that way, to encourage yourself, to remind yourself what your beliefs are, what your faith is in, and to boost yourself back up. And so that way you're not getting so lost in the fears and the anxieties and the sadness. You're able to also speak life into yourself. And it has a way of just giving some rest to your mind and calming your thoughts. And you feel like, okay, like, I'm not carrying quite so much, right? But it's something that it helps to do it consistently. Even if your second part after you let all of the fears out is just to think about, what am I grateful for though? What do I still have? What, all these things are being threatened. There's so much scarcity, but what do I have? I have friendship, I have love, I have a roof over my head. Remind yourself of all the things you have to be grateful for, and it definitely will help to boost you back to a point where you feel like you can cope.
I think that is critically important. I call it a rose and a thorn. I didn't make that up, somebody else did, but I think it's great. So you're talking to thorns, all the things that are in your head, and then reminding yourself that there is a rose, even if it's that you woke up. There's your rose, because some days that's about where we are. And in regard to doing your brain dump journaling, even if your sentences aren't complete thoughts, even if they're just random words, getting them out of your head is really important. Helps you physically, because mind, body, spirit really are connected. And if you're finding that you're having trouble sleeping, doing that at night can be very helpful, because then it allows your brain to rest.
And if you find that a blank page is a little bit daunting, like, okay, I'm looking at this blank page and I don't know what to say, there's so many. I have two. I published two guided journals. One of them is called the Self Care Check In, and the other one is called a year of self reflection. And there's prompts. So they prompt you to ask you those targeted questions to help you do that inner reflection. And sometimes that's helpful because sometimes we're just so overwhelmed and it's just like, I don't know what to say. We just look at the page and sometimes the inner critic kicks in and we just don't know what to say. So sometimes having some prompts or something like that can help you also figure out what needs to come out.
Now we want to pause because I know you might have questions. So, who has a question? Comment? Oh, nope. We have Tian's coming over with a microphone. Is somebody on this side have a question? This gentleman will come over with a microphone over here.
That was good information. And I would say, what good keynotes would you say on a daily aspect to, um, with all that, with social media and family and spiritual things? How would you, and also careers, how would you interpolate how to balance the daily life to kind of get the mindset of your analyzation to keep things into a realm so you won't be overwhelmed with things of a daily life?
Yeah, balance is important. And sometimes there's more on our plate than other days. And so I would take it in small bites. Don't try to do it all at once. So you've got this laundry list of things that it is that you have to do. Maybe today you do the top three. I'm only going to do one thing today. I'm going to do these top three things and then I'm going to move on. So it's setting boundaries, whether you do it with time, like I'm going to set an alarm and do this for 20 minutes and move on to something else, or you do it with items, like I'm going to do these two items and then I'm going to move on. But it's creating structure and boundaries for yourself is what I would recommend.
And just,
Oh, yeah. Hi, yes. Thank you for that. I really appreciate all the little tidbits about mental health. I'm a child psychologist, and this is an area I'm very passionate about. I think when we consider just the stigma around therapy and therapists and just mental health in general, what do both of you have to say to those who are saying, well, I can journal at home, right? I do my journaling, or I'm on TikTok and I get all this advice. Why do I need to see a therapist? Can you just speak to the added benefits of, I understand with the guided journaling, that's different than just you're at home and you're just journaling your thoughts. Often your perspective's not changing. You're just writing out all these terrible things that are happening to you. And it's a good way to vent. But then what's the added benefit of doing that with a therapist, or how do you progress out of that?
Thank you. That's a great question. So let me first start with the mental health stigma is getting better in the Black community, and so, and I have to say shout out to social media and the next generation, actually the younger generation, for helping with that, because that is a drum I've been beating for the 30 years I've been in the field, in our community. Is critically important because there is a difference. I have somebody tell me, I talked to my hairdresser. Okay, now, um, how many years of schooling did I do? Um, there is a difference because it's not just you're speaking, but the person is listening with a different perspective, not like your girlfriend waiting to respond or waiting to say, "I can't believe he did that." What, kind of thing. But it's it's with an objective perspective that is grounded in theories that have been vetted to through research and time that will impact what it is. So one of my approaches, there are a lot of approaches to therapy. Psychoanalytic is Freud. I think everybody's heard about Freud. There's also cognitive behavioral therapy, and that I do a lot of that with people who are struggling with anxiety and depression. And when the foundation of cognitive behavioral therapy is change the way you think, which will then change the way you feel, which will then change the way you behave. So it's reframing your thought processes. And with cognitive behavioral therapy, we often have what is known as cognitive distortions. So it's just the way that we're thinking about things and the way that we're processing things. And with a therapist who is credentialed, and I also want to say, just sometimes you got to shop around. The first time you see somebody might not be a good fit. That's okay. Go to somebody else. And keep looking until you find somebody that's a good fit for you, because I just told you I have an approach. People have different approaches. They have different personalities. But with cognitive distortions, it's also finding out, why do I think the way that I think? Where did this come from? And oftentimes it's learned behavior. So there is a difference when you're sitting with a licensed professional. You're going to take away insight into yourself that you might not be able to garner if it was just you or you and your hairdresser.
Um, First of all, thank you both for your words of wisdom and your guidance today. Um, I'm at a point of time where I've been in my self-care journey and just doing daily spiritual things like meditating and reading, just trying to improve myself. But most recently, I had a friend say something that really resonated with me, and she said, "It's time for you to stop that self-care journey and reconnect." Now, you made and I think she said it with much love, but you made a point about just muting and detaching from things when it's time, doing things that are beneficial for you. But my question would be, is there a time where there's enough self-care, or maybe you need to go ahead and relax and say, okay, I'm okay, I'm well.
Oof. Self-care is a lifestyle. There's never enough self-care. Maybe what she could be referring to, though, I have had people in my life who are kind of like, there isn't a point where we can shelter ourselves so much that it's like, I feel so much better now. I'm doing all these things. And we kind of, I've done this, put myself in a bit of a bubble. Like, I'm just going to shelter myself from the things I don't like, or not expose myself to certain things, maybe make my life a little smaller, because I can't control what's out there. But I know in my little bubble with my journals and my meditation and this and that, I can control that. So I'm just going to stay right here. I'm good. So if you're making your life smaller and not going out into the world and doing the work you're called to do, and stretching and expanding, then maybe that's maybe with the angle she was coming from. So you take your self-care practices with you into all the places that you go and all the things that you do. And the only way it's too much self-care, I would say, like, it feels funny even saying that, is if you're holding yourself back from living your life because you're, so contained in this bubble.
And then I would say that's not self-care.
Right.
I would call that hiding from the world. And so you got to ask yourself, am I caring for myself, or am I just not wanting to deal with anybody? And it's important to pull back, take a deep breath, give yourself a day or two of vacation, and then go back in, because that's where you learn effective communication, interpersonal skills, and you got to practice and know it's not linear. It's not just going to be completely up. It'll be up and then down and then back and then forth. And then when you have to step back, then pat yourself on the back and know that you're doing something hard, and you're going to have another step forward, that you're on the journey, because it's a journey. Don't ever stop self care.
Yes, we have time for one more question.
Here. Hi, thank you. Hi. Thank you so much. I am really enjoying all of these tools. I will be adding to my toolkit. I have one question though. What are you recommending for the youth? They are very, very resistant to therapy. They don't want to talk to anyone, but they need something. What do you suggest or recommend in talking to the youth, the teenagers?
They are talking, they're just not talking to a professional. They're going on TikTok and processing their life, and Instagram. And so I would say to them that although your friends are nice, they are trying to work it out just like you. And I'm so glad you asked this question, because I wanted to say earlier about TikTok that we have influencers that are on there. We have people that are on there. Most of them don't know what they're talking about. So please limit at least go and at least do some research or investigation if you hear something. And then there's always a buzzword. I think self-care is the current buzzword. Narcissist was the buzzword before then. We had anxiety or autism. But if you notice, if you pay attention, there'll be these trends. that people are talking. Now everybody's a narcissist and everybody is depressed, or every man that you dated, not all they're not everybody that hurt your feelings is a narcissist. Some of them just hurt your feelings. So I want to be really careful about that. But with our youth, it's letting them know that I'm glad they're open, because they are open, but they're talking to people that are trying to figure it out too. And role modeling. Well, since we're all adults in here and we have kids, I have two sons, we have to also role model for them that it's okay. So, and by the way, I have a therapist. Don't ever go see a therapist that doesn't have a therapist.
Yeah, I agree. From a parent perspective, I have kids too, and I just try to set that example, and I try to very much humanize. I know when I was a kid, my parents were not humans; they were parents, and I really have tried to change that and be very human with them. Tell them when I'm having a hard day. I don't hide it. I'm feeling sad today, or I'm anxious or whatever it is, and I'm very open about that with my kids. I've told them things like, "Man, I was not the parent I am 10 years ago. I'm sorry for that time I did this." Like, I just try to really be honest with them and model good mental health practices, and talk to them about the things they're finding on social media, like have those conversations with them.
Well, I think although this conversation is amazing, we have come to the end of it. I wish we could go longer. However, I want to thank our panelists because they are amazing. And I know that you got great value from Dr. Lisa and Gigi Hill. So I want to thank them for their time. Let's give them another round of applause.